here for another Sunday night football preview, this time for the Cleveland Browns and the Ravens game, which is an AFC North battle between two really solid teams. And overall, I'm really glad my Steelers aren't playing. These AFC North battles tend to be bloodbaths, tends to be a lot of injuries in these games, so I'll be an excited spectator, but overall, hope these teams end up getting out a little bit unscathed, but we know this is going to be a physical battle, likely a close game coming down into the stretch. So as a NFL fan in general, you should definitely be excited for this matchup. What we'll cover in this video is we're going to go through my Patreon projections, talk about some of the best plays for the single game slate. We're going to be doing this in the same format as we had for last time. I'm going through my projections rather than what the format has been for the last few months. Just to give you guys a little bit of a better example of the numbers that I'm using and, of course, where I project a lot of these players. So let's hop right into it. First off with the projections. Okay, cool. Here are the projections for everyone. I'll just remind you, if you're new to the channel, these are the Patreon projections. You can get access to all of these in the description. It's just $1 for the month for each sport. I also have an all sports package on there for $1.75, so super cheap to get access to all of my data. And I'm obviously updating this with injury news to come. So there's some guys on here I have projected in or out based on the injury news and buzz that we've heard to this point of the week. But obviously things can change, especially if there's any setbacks with those injuries. So with all that out of the way, let's hop into a player pool. First off with our quarterbacks, Lamar Jackson, anytime we have him on a showdown slate, it's probably getting old at this point, but you want to go ahead and play him at captain. He's just a slam dunk pick at that position. He projects higher than everyone else on the slate by at least 6 points. So pretty much all you have to say there with Lamar Jackson. And not only is he getting you plenty of floor, plenty of safety, he's also giving you a ton of upside. This guy can very well go out there, throw for 300 passing yards, also rush for 100 yards at the same time. And whenever you have that guy, somebody with that type of upside, you obviously want to have him in Showdown. So I like him there at $12,400. And believe it or not, he's been pricier in the past. We've seen him closer to $20,000 at the captain slot before and easily be optimal. So I like going to him a whole lot in this situation. Next up, we have Baker Mayfield there at $9,800. Obviously a lot cheaper, but still a little bit expensive for Baker in my opinion. So even though he's in my player pool, you guys can see that over there on the right, he's not going to be somebody that I have more than the field. Right now I have him projected at 58.4% ownership. I'm likely to be closer to 30-35% mark. I want to have a little bit of exposure just in case both quarterbacks end up being optimal. That is definitely well within the realm of possibility. I just think that Baker Mayfield has a much lower chance than 58% to end up in the optimal lineup. In terms of my Lamar exposure, he's going to be a lock for me. So he's either going to be at flex or captain in all of my lineups. We'll have to see how the shakedown, how my lineups end up looking come the end of the week to figure out exactly how much I have of them at captain. Next up, we have running backs. So the running back position gets a lot better for this Cleveland Browns team. Not only do we have Nick Chubb, who's going to be back at 100%, was playing last week, but still a little bit gimpy. Now we have Kareem Hunt expected to be activated from IR. D'Ernest Johnson has solidified himself as a part of this offense. I do expect him to retain some of his share just because of how impressive that he was. So they were in shambles just a few weeks ago, but now have all their guys back. So in general, in terms of a fantasy perspective, kind of limits their, I'd say, upside. None of them are going to go out there, get you 30 touches or anything like that. They're all extremely efficient. They are still running behind the best O-line in the entire NFL. So you have to like the situation that they're in here against this Ravens team. So Nick Chubb, again, Kareem Hunt, same thing with Johnson. They're all going to be in the player pool. Johnson, as of right now, he didn't make my last player pool. He'll probably sneak in a lineup or two just because he could end up breaking off one of those long runs that we've seen from him. He's extremely explosive, but not a priority by any means. On the other side of things, with the Ravens guys, they also have a bunch of guys in the mix. You have Devontae Freeman, Latavius Murray, and Tyson Williams all getting carries. Le'Veon Bell's not even on the slate, no longer a part of this team. So it's really just those three running backs we have to deal with. Let's talk about the top two because I think they're the ones that are the most interesting. So Devontae Freeman and Latavius Murray likely to be, thunder and lightning. One of them more quick, that would be Devontae Freeman. Latavius Murray more of a bull power rushing back. Overall, I do expect Latavius Murray to get a lot more carries when they have a positive game script. When the Ravens get out to a relatively large lead, they love to run the ball down to other teams' throat, whether that's with Lamar Jackson or Latavius Murray. In those type of game scripts, he could really see a lot of usage. So Latavius Murray, as of right now, not garnering a ton of ownership, right there, right around 12%. And he provides plenty of value. He's only $3,600. I do expect him, even in a negative game script, to get some usage. So I definitely think he has a floor at the very least. Devonta Freeman, on the other hand, if this Ravens team is playing from behind, so perhaps if you're running a 4-2 stack of Browns versus Ravens, he would be a very good buyback spot because he's going to get plenty of PPR usage in those type of game scripts. But when they're playing from ahead, I do expect them to lean on Latavius Murray. So in Ravens onslaught lineups, I'm more likely to have Murray. In Browns onslaught lineups, I'm much more likely to have somebody like Devonta Freeman. Let's talk about Tyson Williams because he's a little bit of an X factor. He's definitely seen his carries squeezed out of this offense. It hasn't been a factor for quite some time. He's $400, so really all he has to do is go out, get you 30 or 40 rushing yards, and he could pay it off that way. The main avenue for him to succeed here would be an injury to one of those top two. If either one of those guys ends up exiting the rotation, the next man up would be Tyson Williams. And we've seen in the past that the Ravens won't go to a single running back set. They love mixing in the fresh running back, love giving the defense a little bit of a different look. So Tyson Williams, not out of GPP contention, not somebody I'd be rolling out in cash lineups or anything like that. It definitely has that upside there. The other guys there, people like Patrick Ricard, Andy Janovich, I'm not going to make my player pool. They're fullbacks. They're people that are used from time to time in gadget type of plays. I'd rather take the stand as somebody like Tyson Williams, who, if there's an injury, could get legit workload. Not just a gadget player too. Can end up being a workhorse back, in fact. Let's move on to the wide receivers now. So at wide receivers, we have quite a few guys questionable as of right now. A lot of people that have been limited in practice. As of right now, Marquis Brown, Jarvis Landry, and Donovan Peoples-Jones don't have an injury tag. It's just a little bit too early on Friday for us to get those designations. I expect all of them to be questionable, though. They've all been relatively limited in practice this week. There's been a lot of good news coming out about Marquis Brown. We're expecting him to be able to suit up. He just has a contusion on his leg, so a bruise. He should be good to go. Jarvis Landry and Donovan Peoples-Jones might be a little bit more questionable. We do expect Jarvis to be able to suit up. He has been limited in practice, though. Same thing with Donovan Peoples-Jones. Really, if the Browns have any chance at winning this game, they need both of those wide receivers. If they're going to end up missing either of the options, the opposing defense, the Ravens that is, are going to be able to hunker down on that number one option. So you definitely want both of those guys out there because aside from Landry and Peoples-Jones, their wide receiver core is extremely thin. You're dealing with guys like Rashard Higgins, Jamarcus Bradley, who's only emerged since OBJ was traded, and that's about it. Anthony Schwartz is out. He was somebody who could have been a reserve option, but he's been out for quite a few weeks. He's already been rolled out for this game. So really need those two wide receivers to start. So I have them projected as in right now. In terms of my favorite options, though, at this position, you can see I have quite a few guys at captain, the whole way down to even Rashard Higgins. I do expect Higgins, especially if one of those guys sits, to have a sizable role. But even if they don't, he'll be the clear number 3 wide receiver and somebody that they'll love mixing in. They don't use 3 wide receiver sets a whole ton. They love using those 2 tight end sets, using Najoku, Bryant, also somebody like Austin Hooper out there. They essentially interchange the 3 for the entire game. Whenever they do run those 3 wide receiver sets, he's going to see plenty of targets. So just at $3,400, he provides plenty of value. And the type of value that you could even put at captain, right? We're not talking about somebody like Latavius Murray, who's going to be in a huge timeshare, maybe capped at like a 15 fantasy point type of performance. Rashard Higgins could catch a touchdown or 2, right? He's going to get that kind of usage. So I like them a whole lot. Donovan Peoples-Jones, if he plays, I like a whole lot as well. He can take the top off of a defense, has that deep play upside. Also somebody who's utilized in the red zone a bunch. He's got a huge frame. He's good at high pointing the ball. I like him a whole lot there as well. He's also got a good price tag at just $5,000. A couple other people I could use at captain. Rashard Bateman, I'm not against using there. Is going to be the number 2 wide receiver for this Ravens team. Could end up being the number 1 if Marquis Brown is a surprise scratch. Either way, though, going to see snaps for this offense. Has been a much better player than Sammy Watkins, much more polished route runner, better after the catch as well. So overall, I do expect him to distance himself as this team's number 2 wide receiver. So I could go to him at captain. Jarvis Landry, if he plays, he's the clear number 1 wide receiver here. Going to see about 8 to 10 targets. Like going there as well. And we've already talked about Marquis Brown. We already know that Lamar Jackson is an absolute stud, going to probably put up plenty of usage and production in this game. And Marquis Brown is always coming along for the ride. Essentially, the big games that Lamar has are very much so correlated with the big games that Marquis Brown has. So definitely like him there in this situation. Let's talk about captain in general, though, since we talked about all those guys we could potentially use at captain. I'm not sure how much exposure I'm really going to have just because of Lamar. Lamar, I'm probably going to invest at least 60 or 70% of my lineups there at captain. So I'm probably talking about getting even to the field on these type of guys. I definitely think it's conceivable that they go out there and have a big game. But what's much more likely, and that happens probably about 80-90% of the time, is that Lamar Jackson has a performance you just can't fade. He goes out there, gets you 28 to 30 fantasy points. He does that much more than any other player in the league. So Lamar Jackson is going to be my highest owned captain. Just wanted to go ahead and get that out there. But I am going to be mixing in some of these wide receiver options at captain, potentially even Nick Chubb at running back, just because they do have ceiling performances in them, just much less likely than that happening with Lamar Jackson. At tight end, there's quite a few guys I like using for value. The top of the board, somebody that doesn't qualify as value, but somebody that definitely qualifies as a foundational pick for me is Mark Andrews at $8,200. He's always a high usage player in this offense. At the beginning of the year, it started out a little bit slow, ended up having that eruption in the primetime performance earlier on this year. And since then has been a key contributor for this offense. So somebody who's going to get plenty of red zone looks. He's also going to get plenty of looks outside of the 20. So I like using him a captain or in my pool. Will definitely be a foundational piece. A couple guys you can use for some value. So first off is David Najoku, who's definitely the highest upside tight end in this game, the highest upside tight end for this Cleveland Browns team as well. Somebody who is very explosive, can actually take the top off of a defense. Also very good at high pointing the ball in the red zone. So I really like both of those assets when it comes to the Showdown. So definitely mixing him in as some value. And the guy who's extremely cheap, probably the best value play on the slate. Far from a cash play, though. This guy is extremely volatile. That's Josh Oliver at $200. He's somebody who's going to get targets when they're down in the red zone. Mark Andrews is obviously a target, number one option there, but they love using two tight end sets. Try to make it look like they're going to run the ball, that kind of thing. Josh Oliver is a wide receiver playing tight end. He's got a very big frame. He's not the best blocker. Probably blocks a lot worse than some of the wide receivers that are out there. But boy, is he a good red zone target. So I like putting him in some lineups as a pure flyer. Again, he's only $200, so it helps you spend up for somebody like Lamar at captain. So definitely as somebody I'm using as a diamond in the rough. Let's talk real quickly about the defenses and the kickers. Both defenses I'm all right going to. This isn't the highest over-under on the entire slate or anything like that. Both defenses have been relatively productive to this point of the year. I'm not going to be using them at captain, but if you're mixing them in for a few lineups, don't hate that at all. And our kickers, though, love the kickers here. Don't love them enough to be putting them at captain, but Justin Tucker, NFL's best kicker, can't go wrong putting him in lineups. Same thing with Chase McLaughlin. He's getting plenty of usage. Unfortunately for this Browns team, they're having a hard time getting the ball in the end zone. So a huge beneficiary of that has been Chase McLaughlin. He's had a great year for them. Hasn't been as accurate as we've seen in the past, but on any given Sunday, could go out there and make 3 or 4 field goals. So I like both of those options as mix-ins. That's all I've got for the Sunday Night Football preview, guys. As I said before, you guys can access the projections that you saw on my Patreon page. I'll put a link down in the description. If you guys are looking to join for the NFL, it is just $8 for the month or 25 cents a week. So not going to find a better deal out there in the industry. I highly recommend you guys go ahead and check that out. And as always, go ahead and let me know who your favorite captain option is on this slate. I think it'd be pretty hard not to choose Lamar Jackson, but if you're considering somebody else off the board that I wasn't, please go ahead and let me know. And as always, really appreciate all of the support here. If you guys haven't already liked the video or subscribed to the channel, make sure you guys go ahead and do so. We're going to have plenty of Showdown content to come for Monday Night Football, all the primetime slates for next week, and of course, our usual coverage for the main slate. So good luck with all of your lineups here for Sunday Night Football, and may the best team win.